Hey, what is up? What is up, YouTube, gaming family, and everybody else that rocks with me. It's K right here. I wanted to give you guys a quick little video. This is mostly with political news. I just wanted to kind of give you guys like my little point of view on what's going on in the world right now, and I think this is important. But I'm only saying this because this is just who I am as a person. Yes, like for those of y'all that do know me, I post a lot of boxing content. I do gaming content on top of that. At times I do post, political and philosophical content as well. But yeah, today I'm just gonna give you guys like my quick little thoughts on a political situation that's going on with the I want to say that the war that's going on with the United States versus Iran, along with Israel. So yeah, I'm just gonna give you guys like my little quick thoughts off of it. Shout out to Marshall, no commentary. He's a Call of Duty Warzone, YouTuber, and I'm basically using his video just to commentate on what's going on. So yeah, definitely go subscribe to him, and yeah, let's get right to it. So yeah, let's talk about what's going on with this whole situation with the United States versus Iran, um, and on top of that, Israel. For those of you that may not know, there is a war going on where Donald Trump had unjustifiably started a war up against Iran, and pretty much, just to simplify this, because I don't want this video to go too long. This whole war was primarily started for the sense of wanting to, you know, basically do a regime change up against the corrupt Iranian government that the people are demanding to say that they want their leader to be taken out. That being Ayatollah Khomeini. He is a very corrupted leader, but for those of you that may not know him, I'm very like aware of him because I study a lot of historical figures, and like I would say that I'm pretty good at like basically remembering a lot of phases of history, and I'm very dedicated in knowing that, along with economics to that particular degree. So yeah, I'm actually pretty versed with what's going on with any particular political leader at that particular level. Ayatollah Khomeini, to my knowledge, was a CIA imported, installed leader, and to my particular, like I should say, to my particular belief, I believe this particular means of him coming to power was most likely for Iran to become a more authoritarian country, but it was to be in line with like Western world, principles in terms of what the Ayatollah coming to power, and therefore Iran works with the US in terms of prioritizing their economy to make sure that the oil money that America's trying to get out of them can particularly give them the benefit of having to be successful. So that is a somewhat potential principle of like what could have been a particular means of like Iran being in business with America, with certain political mutual connections that the US has tried to do with Iran. The main crux of the story with America and Iran is that America has been trying to take over Iran for quite a long time. If I'm not to be mistaken, this is that like I would say the US and Iran have been, basically in a proxy war ever since, I'll probably say maybe during Vietnam days, at least at the 1960s or borderline 1970s, because Ayatollah Khomeini, even though that he is dead because of the U.S. Quote unquote drone striked him. So, I want to say he is dead at this point. I'm not too sure if that's really true. I do know that his son actually took over the throne, so his son would be the next leader for Iran. That could be subject to change. I'm not too sure what's going to go on with this war. But Ayatollah Khomeini, he is a very evil leader simply due to the fact that U.S. interventionism has been caused for the CIA to get involved, and try to install, corrupted people into power, but it's to benefit the war on terror and to give people a particular reason to go out of their way to, be more oppressed for the wrong reasons of statism. Um, Iran, however, they've been a very, you know, how should I say, war-driven country ever since the Persian Empire. So their track record of trying to be at peace with all the other Islamic nations, including themselves being, very authoritarian Islamic, they've had their problems and they have fought for a lot of, political means to try to control, people for, a lot of, particular reasons to say that, we want to conquest our enemies because, we don't feel like that we are in line with other people's, principles. So therefore, you know, you know, multiple nation states are at war with Iran for the sake of, political dominance to a particular degree. Um, Now, as far as Iran's issue of like why the U.S. is going to war with them, this is primarily due to the fact that Iran has been getting a lot stronger throughout America's, interference with the Middle East politically. America has been trying to take over the Middle East for quite a long time. This has been going on since at least World War II or heading into Vietnam. Definitely after World War II. And I'm not gonna bring Israel into this conversation, but Israel has had a very long history of trying to fight those countries for a long time, and they have put themselves in a really deep position where they are trying to institute their own, imperialistic structure to try to take over countries for a lot of, nonsensical reasons to think that this is for their safety, but the truth is that it's really not. It's just like another means to start proxy wars and to get people more angry and upset where they're going to start going for, the wrong type of beliefs for them to push for more political violence. Now, as far as Iran's case, Iran has been a very oppressive country for quite a long time. Ayatollah Khomeini has done a lot of bad things. He has killed a lot of people, but this is nothing new. I mean, America has been interfering with Iran's politics for a very long time, and America has been trying to control Iran. So therefore, Iran can be subservient to the United States. In terms of, yeah, like in terms of a political empire. I guess control where they're not having to have much of a say politically with like what's going on. Now the whole deal with Iran is that this war is primarily started in the sense of the US is quote unquote at risk of being attacked by Iran because Iran has been propping up their military for quite a long time. They've been stockpiling a lot of weapons where they can shoot a ton of missiles at high speeds, which I want to say that they have like supersonic missiles. I forgot what they have, but basically they have some pretty good, decent technology to the point where they're able to control the amount of weaponry that they're able to manage. And then on top of that, a lot of their missiles that they have in terms of like how they operate them are very powerful in the sense of they have them hidden. You don't know where they really are, and therefore they can really, do a lot of damage within a war conflict where they're not going to stop, like attacking you until you get quote unquote destroyed. Um, I do believe Iran does have an air force. I'm not too sure if they really focus too much on that. I don't really think that they really ever focus much on that because a lot of like their, weaponry is mostly focused on, anti-air. Yeah, at least anti-aircraft, like, missiles. But I do believe Iran does have a Iranian Royal Air Force. So I will say, in terms of this particular means, I'm not too sure if their air force is really powerful, but I'm pretty sure they are. I don't think they have a navy, so I don't think that they're really doing much of controlling what the controlling the waves per se. But just to summarize this, America is fighting a war that Israel was putting themselves in conflict with Iran, and Iran has been trying to, tell the US to back off. We are trying to solve our particular issues directly with Israel. And, Iran, they're not going to listen to the fact of like wanting to get peace and wanting to, play fair game. Um, but this was a conflict between Iran and Israel because Israel has been saying, well, according to Benjamin Netanyahu, well, actually no, I'm not going to use his words. I'm just going to say that as far as his establishment, they are showing a lot of interest in wanting to attack Iran because they want to start problems with them for the sake of conquest of them to take them over because Israel is quote unquote afraid to a particular degree where that the higher powers within their government probably believe that Iran is such a massive threat to the world, but the truth is that a lot of people have been saying that for quite a long time, and Iran has not really been thinking about wanting to even invade other countries unless they themselves believe within their own political like establishment where they need to fight. But I'm going to say, as far as like my point of view on this war, I think this war is senseless. I think this is very, very stupid. This is basically Afghanistan with Iraq 2.0. Basically another Vietnam, if you will. But I'll probably say it's more in line with Afghanistan and Iraq. America did not do anything in both of those wars. I was there growing up. And I will tell you, as far as my experience growing up in the early 2000s, even though I was born in 95, the Iraq War was useless. It was a very shitty war, excuse my French, where a lot of people died, and a lot of clueless Americans thought that that war was being fought for defending the people's freedoms. Oh, wait, hold on. Give me 1 second. All right, I'm back. Yeah, basically, people had, particularly thought that that war was being fought for defending people's freedoms, and therefore, the Iraqi military was, carrying weapons of mass destruction and all this crazy crap that George W. Bush was trying to lie to the, American public, basically doing the same thing what JFK was doing up against, Vietnam to say that, oh, they're such a very evil country and they have all these crazy destructive weapons, being granted by the Soviets and I want to say China to a particular degree, but that was never true to begin with anyway. So, it's pretty much of the same principality. But to summarize everything up, America getting into this war is very stupid. This is going to cause a lot of lives to get killed, and I've seen it before. The Iraq War, along with Afghanistan, has costed, I want to say, almost about total wise, at least like what, up to like 80,000 men, if not more. And maybe, if I'm going a little bit too high, I'll probably I will probably say at least maybe close to 60,000 plus, soldiers, because there's no way that any American can ever say that American lives were taken out the lease in these particular conflicts. And the truth is that America was never putting themselves in a better position to say that we're doing this to sustain American safety and promote better national security. So therefore, our federal government can basically have more, political security in terms of like, sustaining, American lives. And that's not true because it's like the Middle East, for one, they're not how should I say, the Arab nations or the Arab, Middle Eastern nations are not well equipped enough with their military might to even think about invading America. And even if they were, it would have to take a massive army to even think about wanting to do something like that. But that's a risk on them because the American population that is heavily armed in the US will have a much more bigger response to fight back in terms of having to deal with a potential enemy, invader that's trying to, push some sort of colonial, imperialism. So I don't really find that to be true. I think it's really dumb And I think it's very evil. The United States has way more control with its military might to go to other countries and tell people what to do. And honestly, the US is no different from the Soviet Union, along with Nazi Germany, along with any other empire that has put themselves, in a position to send military forces to invade people and just say, "Oh, well, you know what? We're just going to tell you guys what to do and you guys will deal with it because we are the big dogs and we are the Cerberus war demon warlord dogs where we're able to do what we want to do." And I do say that, discreetly because I truly do believe that America is like, I'm not gonna say like with every person that thinks like this, but America, as far as the federal government's track record of starting war conflicts, is that America is equivalent to a Cerberus demon warlord dog that is able to unleash its power at the strongest particular level because the US does not fear of any particular massive threat that can take the United States Army out at a level of harming the mass amount of particular resources that the US can particularly sustain. And the truth is that America is a very powerful country simply due to the fact that the military is overtly funded to the point where a lot of taxes are being put into it. And on top of that, it's like a pretty wide corporatist market that is benefited off of the military industrial complex of having a lot of bases being invested into high weapons tech that a lot of, guns weapons dealers probably work with the United States military every single year where the US puts a lot of investment into a lot of big massive gun creating, businesses or weapons manufacturer dealers that can give them, the best top of the line weaponry. So that does make sense of like why the US does what it does because America's able to get a return on its investment where the federal government is going after various countries or they are, administering the United States military to go after various nations that are not, how should I say, militarily capable to hold a massive, military might for them to be, how should I say, um, for them to be vigilantly responsive against U.S. foreign intervention to the point of them trying to really fight back and actually become a massive threat for them to actually like basically push back American I guess military like American military I'll say military enforcement like aggression. So overall, this war is pretty useless. Iran, yes, their military is pretty somewhat strong, but the truth is that they are very strong in terms of like gaining a lot of tactics from the United States Army based off of what the US has done, and Iran has been holding on to a lot of their weaponry, mostly with like their anti-aircraft missiles and a lot of their like fighter jets and everything that they put a lot of focus into for them to be prepared for a particular conflict like this. So they're able to continuously have a lot more quantity over quality to do what they want to do in order to hurt in order to hurt a country. Wait, hold on. All right. All right, I'm back. So, yeah, basically just to summarize everything. Iran has been doing a very good job maintaining their military like resources like effectively where they have been learning from the US to basically sustain their weaponry resources for quantity rather than quality. And granted, government is not perfect with military, how should I say, defenses per se, because government you know, has a disincentive to basically come up with like the most fastest, solutions for the least amount of, effort. for them to be successful. So, in terms of any nation state military having to be funded through taxes, the supply and demand is measured with no market incentive, and therefore it's just based off of what can be produced through a central planning structure that can be the most cost efficient for the least amount of work having to be like applied properly. So overall, I think Iran, they've been putting their focus on making sure that the quality of the product is not always having to be the best, but if it's good enough to get the job done, where you have like a bunch of military weapons and you're able to win a lot of your fights with those particular weapons in mass numbers, compared to having a least amount of supply for the highest quality of your weaponry. Yeah, the weapons that are high in mass numbers compared to weapons that are not in higher supply, but they are good quality weapons, and they're not able to keep up simply due to the lack of supply of those higher tech, weapons, then that's not going to win in a war. So I think overall, America is putting themselves in a grave situation in this war. A lot of people are trying to say that World War III could be on the corner, basically, around the corner. Nuclear warfare can happen, and all this crazy nonsensical crap. I don't think that will ever go that far. If Iran is really trying to do something like that, yeah, I don't think they want to do that, because America has nukes where they can basically be fired from multiple other countries, and I think the US is very capable of doing that. But I don't want to see that. I think nuclear warfare is very stupid, and that's already been proven with World War II, with the Japanese getting you know basically severely like affected by it. So I don't think anybody wants to be dumb to even try to do that, because that's going to lead to a lot of special forces wanting to be deployed, and it's going to be like an all-out battle. So it's like, I personally think that's not something that people want to see. I don't think people want to see death and destruction. So but yeah, I don't want to be a particular you know individual having to fight at that particular level in a war, if that ever gets that bad. So either way, just to finalize everything, um Iran is not the good guys, and America is not a good, good country itself either. On top of, Israel wanting the US to even get involved in this war, I think America does not need to be involved in this war. I think America just needs to say, no, we're pulling out. This is a senseless war. And obviously, Donald Trump, he's going to try to keep this going, until, there's going to be like some, how should I say, like some vigilant response from the American people, where they are not going to put up with this, because, we live, in a world of technology. So it's like, there's really no reason for this war to continue, as more, um, like I should say, like as more information comes out and more people start to see the truth of why the US is really going over there. And I think eventually the true American public that wants to find answers and actually like demand justice and liberty for the, actual like accountability for the political, like establishment, that has to be heard. And I think eventually over time it will. I think Trump supporters will be held, accountable for their actions, and I think Donald Trump alone, he will have to be held like accountable for his actions too. I think by and large, this could be a war crime, simply due to the fact that you're not really helping the American people. If anything, you're really making the American people less safe, because you're trying to start a conflict with another nation that never even attacked the US at all. So I think America needs to needs to back away. Israel started this conflict with Iran, and this is not the American people's war. I think this is the dumbest excuse that anybody, including a ignorant conservative for defending Donald Trump can say, "Oh, well, this war has to be fought because if we don't do anything, then therefore America will be attacked by Iran." No, Iran will never even get close to even. Hold on. All right, I'm back. So yeah, just to finalize everything, Iran would never be that close of getting that far to where they need to, how should I say, to where they want to succeed in taking over America. And the thing is that the American population is heavily armed to the point where their own military would not really last that long, even if they wanted to even try to take over certain parts of the U.S. So, it would, it would very well spark a lot more wars within the U.S. in terms of other nations wanting to come to the U.S.'s aid, whether it would be Canada or any other neighboring country. But either way, that's pretty much like my thoughts. I don't want to go too far into this, but I just wanted to give you guys like my point of view on this. I think this is a very dumb war. I don't think America should even be in this conflict. I think this war needs to be ceasefired, and I think Donald Trump should just back away. I think to make yourself a better president and to even like hold yourself accountable for your actions. I think Donald Trump should back away. And I think, if anything, if he is to be found liable of doing something, very scandalous to put himself in a position of wanting to sacrifice American lives for in other countries, foreign meddling, affairs like Israel, then he should be federally, yeah, he should be federally prosecuted. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I'll see you guys later, and let me know what you guys think. All right, I'll see you guys, and this is K Rod signing out. Peace.